Bills Pod Squad is brought to you by the New York Lottery. Play the new Skee Ball Scratch-Off game and you could catch up to $60,000. You must be 18 years or older to purchase a lottery ticket. Coming up on this week's episode, we catch up with Hall of Famer Howie Long as we'll discuss his unique career from the field to the NFL on Fox to Hollywood and the big screen. Kim gets into what it's like being a parent of a professional athlete and what went into the collaboration with Bills Mafia. This week's Bills Pod Squad starts right now. Welcome into Bills Pod Squad, presented by the New York Lottery. Maddy Glab and Bills owner and president Kim Pegula here as your host. Bills Pod Squad is a podcast that takes you around the NFL from players to coaches to personalities. We get into who they are outside of football. We have Fox studio analyst Howie Long on the pod today. He talks his memories playing against the Bills, gives us insight into how much his first rookie check was, and shares what's it like to be a parent of professional athletes. Kim, the Bills fall to the defending Super Bowl champions, the Chiefs, 26-17. They had it within 6 points in the fourth quarter with about 6 minutes on the clock. They had the Chiefs in a 3rd and 12 situation, but couldn't keep it close enough there towards the end of the game, so it ends up being a loss. The Bills are now 4-2 on the season. Anything interesting about that game from your perspective,
Well, let's
Kim?
not forget that they are the Super Bowl champions for a
this
reason.
is true.
And certainly coming into the game, they were also 4-1. So tough team.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, like you said, very surprised, very, excited to have that close of a game. So keeping Patrick Mahomes down to the amount of points that we did was certainly kind of one of the, achievements and one of the things that coach talked about after the game that they wanted to focus on, not letting Patrick Mahomes and the passing yards really get out away from them. But like I said, still didn't get away with the win, and we have to get back to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or today, actually.
Today.
Yeah.
It's another short week for the Bills. They have 2 short weeks, played on Tuesday against the Titans, and then they play on Monday against the Chiefs. Finally ahead, we have a Sunday 1 o'clock kick. I've got to say, I'm excited to get back into that in week 7 here to maybe reset things, get back in the groove, get back into our 1 o'clock kicks. Surely we do have 2 more Monday Night Football games left, a Sunday Night Football game left, but I'm excited to see how this team bounces back because they do learn from losses. I could see some of the things that they were working on were fixed in this game against the Chiefs. You didn't have as many penalties and things like that. I think now they go back to the drawing board. They continue to work on that defensive line, and they continue to work on getting the running game involved in this offense. They have such a talented passing game. I'd love to see Devin Singletary and Zach Moss get involved a little bit more, and I really think that's on the horizon for this team.
I would agree, and even though the Jets have not won a game this season yet, though, it's a division rival, and we need this win. And as Sean talks about a lot, every game is hard to win in this league. It doesn't matter what a team's record is, and so I know that they're going to be going back to work this week, really focusing on the Jets. Is not a given, and they're going to be working hard to get the next W, especially in a division game.
Yep, especially in a division game. This is an important game for the Bills. For the Jets, I want to come away with this one with a win. Unfortunately, since the Bills lost to the Chiefs, that means Kay Adams, the host of Good Morning Football, she's not going to eat chicken wings on live TV for the first time. That's a bet that Kim and I made with her in our last podcast. If you were listening, she was our guest. She said that she had never eaten chicken wings before, so Kim thought, why not have her eat them on TV if the Bills were to take down the Chiefs?
That is true. I'm sure that if I turn on Good Morning Football, she is super excited today not to have eaten those wings, those bones, and but you know what? Maybe we can get her again another time.
That's what I said. Yeah. I tweeted at her. I was like, you know what? Maybe next time we'll get you with this. But let's get into our top 3 segment. It's brought to you by Connors and Ferris. Connors and Ferris is also our game sponsor for this week, your workers' comp attorneys. So Kim, our top 3 this week is top 3 memories, stories of being a parent of a professional athlete. Howie Long gets into being a father of 2 professional athletes. Your daughter Jessie is a pro tennis player. So she's been a pro for how many years? And I just want to kind of hear about your top 3 memories, stories.
Right. Well, unlike Howie's 2 kids that played football, Jessie is not retired yet. So
that's good.
So, but I will say there's a lot of memories, and it's not easy being a parent of an athlete. My top 3 memories. let's see, I'm probably going to say, so she started playing tennis when she was 7 years old. And that was certainly kind of a young age to know what you want to do in your life. I mean, I don't think any of us really knew at age 7 what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I feel like at age 7, you're like, I want to be a rock star.
Yeah.
I want to be an astronaut. You're still living in that world.
Yeah,
Professional athletes, I'm sure a lot of kids want to be professional athletes at that age, but seemed like she was pretty set on that at 7
She was.
years
She
old.
had some great hand-eye coordination, and one of my first very early memories was Terry, and so Jessie played on a boys baseball team when she was younger, and her and her friend were the only 2 girls on the team, and they were by far the best players on their team. But I remember, so my husband was outside playing catch and hitting the ball, playing catch, and kind of doing some baseball skills. And I just remember him coming in and be like, "Hey, Kim, you got to come out here. You got to watch. You got to watch her. She's hitting, batting left-handed. Like I'm like really throwing the ball at her, and she's catching it. And I was like, she's got like amazing hand-eye. And I just, it was my first child, and so I was like, oh, that's great, hon. I didn't notice anything. She's 7, right? But Terry had already coached before. He had coached boys hockey for many years, so he kind of understood some of the skill set and had seen different skills coming, especially the hand-eye coordination. So I didn't notice it at first, but I just remember him super excited, like, wow, like she's got some really good skills. Even at age 7, he could see that. And I was clueless. I'm like, oh, it's nice, and I'm glad she's playing and having fun, and just kind of being the typical mom at that point, not knowing that was going to be her life career for the next 20 years. So that was probably my first early memory.
Where did she get the hand-eye coordination from? Was that
from
you
me, of
or
course?
Terry?
From me, of course. I'd like to think that it was from me. You know what? Terry's father was a very good baseball player.
Okay.
Played, I think, kind of in the minors, but long time ago. But he had tremendous hand-eye coordination and was a great athlete. And so we kind of say, okay, maybe he kind of skipped a generation, maybe, and pass it along to Jessie. My second memory, I'm going to say, is, oh my goodness, probably when we went to Hong Kong. We went to Hong Kong. Terry and I were, we're not big international travelers. And so my daughter was going with a group of people to play a tournament in Hong Kong. And, it's a long flight. And when you're playing in juniors, she was 13, I believe. 13.
Okay.
She's playing in juniors, and you are, one and done. Like if you lose, that's kind of it, right?
Go back to the United States.
And so my daughter, I believe we were there. We made it over there. She was playing. I thought she was going to lose because she was I can't remember the score, but she was like a game away from losing. Ended up winning that match, and then ended up winning singles and doubles.
Wow.
And I booked our flight back earlier before the tournament ends, and I remember her being so upset. Like, Mom, you didn't think I was going to win?
You didn't believe in me,
Mom?
Yeah,
I scheduled a flight to return because it was one of those things. I knew my husband, he was there to watch Jessie, not to travel to Hong Kong, and so I knew that if she was out early, he won't, he's not going to want to stick around all week long. So I kind of, cut it back a few days.
Might as well just have a little buffer here.
Yeah,
and we'll
I
just
remember
book
she was
this
just
flight.
I mean, obviously we were thrilled and happy to change the flight. Although Terry had to sit in coach because we couldn't get the tickets, enough tickets to go back on first class. So, but it was worth it. It was a fun tournament to see her kind of do that. And I'm probably going to say the other, maybe I have more than 3, but the other one, the same trip there. It was amazing, and they talk about how sports really kind of all the intangible things that you can learn from sports. And because I saw it in our daughter, we were in Hong Kong. My husband and I are freaking out because we don't know anything. We've never been to Hong Kong before. And here's my 13-year-old daughter, and she's like, "Hey, do you want to see my hotel?" We're like, sure. So we were at the tennis tournament, and of course, my husband and I are staying at the Omni, this really nice hotel, right? That speak English and all that good stuff. And so we're following our daughter. I have no idea where her hotel is, and we're just following her. She's only 13, and we're going through markets where there's food hanging from the ceilings. You know how you kind of see those
Yes.
this big open markets, and we're walking up a hill, and I was like, Jess, do you know where you're going? Oh yeah, I know how we're going. We literally just walking through Hong Kong, and we finally get to a hotel. I'm like, how the heck am I going to get back? So just to see your daughter who, at 13 just takes such command of the environment, no fear at all of where she was or that she was going to get lost, even she was in a foreign country she's never been to before, and just such invaluable skills that I certainly didn't have when I was 13. So my husband and I had to call a cab because we didn't know how to get back to our hotel, and didn't have my daughter there to take us back. So
Wow.
yeah, so it's just amazing some of the things that sports can teach you and the experiences that they bring to you, whether you're playing internationally or locally. But it's yeah, some great achievements. You heard Howie talk about just some of his great memories, especially that Super Bowl win with his son. And I will tell you that we are always cheering, and we hope as we talk about the Stanley Cup, the Super Bowl, we hope our daughter wins a tennis championship, one of the majors, before the other teams do. So that's how you always feel when you have your own child.
All right, so let's all root for Jessie so that the
That's
other
right.
two things can happen.
Yes,
What's so special now watching her as a professional athlete? I mean, you see her at 7 with this fire in her eyes and this desire to make it, and then you see her at 13 in a tournament in Hong Kong, winning games, and now you see her professionally traveling all over the world, playing against some great opponents, making a name for herself. So what are some of the special things now, just watching her, I guess, fully blossomed almost?
Yeah, I would say now that she's older and mature, and I literally don't do anything with her tennis anymore. I mean, back in the day, you sign her up for the tournament, you get her racket strung, you do kind of all the logistics behind the scene. I even have a hard time watching her because I get so nervous.
I know
because
we've been filming podcasts before, and you're like, okay, I can't watch Jessie's playing right now. We'll just check in after we're done filming this.
Well, because I have no one to blame when you're playing a single sport. If our team's not doing well, say, listen, our defense wasn't there, our offense was off, the quarterback didn't connect, whatever. There's a whole team that you can blame in tennis, and when it's your daughter, and that's the only person you can blame, it's very stressful. So I have a hard time watching it. I just like to be the person just like, hey, after the match, like, oh, just let me know if you won or lost, and just say, okay, well, there's another tournament, so better luck next time, or congrats, or whatever the conversation is. So it's very stressful. But I think now, now what I love is watching it on TV, especially during this COVID, is her name being associated with some of the best players in the world.
That is so true.
And that, just like I said, thinking back to when she was 7 and the path that she's taken, a lot of injuries, just like we see with our players here, just going through a lot of the mental, maturity that you have to take to compete every day, all the physical kind of stress that she's put on her body playing a year-round sport, and the injuries that she's had. Just now kind of seeing her competing with the top 50 women in the world is just, now it's just it's more fun. It's just to see her there.
And I'll say I was like a casual tennis fan. I guess I still am. I'll watch the big matchups. But when Jessie's playing, there's like a vibe around the office. It's like, oh, Jessie's playing today. Like, let's watch. Let's turn it on. Let's stay in the know on Twitter or whatever and see what's up if she's on TV. So it's been fun to tune in when she is playing and she is on TV. So let's get into our interview with Hall of Famer Howie Long. The Buffalo Bills are proud to partner with National Grid in promoting the Safety First initiative, where every time a Bills safety makes a tackle at home, National Grid will donate $50 to the 100 Club of Buffalo in support of first responders and their families. National Grid reminds you to put safety first in your home with this easy tip. If you use a generator, be sure to keep it outdoors and away from doors, windows, and vents. All right, here's our interview with Hall of Famer Howie Long. Howie Long, we are so pumped to have you on this podcast. I mean, a Hall of Famer like yourself, someone who has had such a crazy career from football to being in studio with Fox for so long, to having kids who have played in the NFL, and being an actor. It seems like you've really covered it all.
And a
in
book
life.
author.
And a book author. Like, what more could have you done in life? So we're excited to get into all of that, talk with you just about football. And we'll start off with the Buffalo Bills. They've had a hot start to the season. We've really seen Josh Allen come alive in his 3rd year as a quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. So watching the Buffalo Bills this season, I guess, what has struck you? What do you think of this team in 2020?
Well, it's interesting because our our oldest son Chris played up in Wyoming. Uh, is I think his senior year, early in the year, and it kind of you're like, where is this? And they play football out here, and I think that was kind of the feeling with Josh Allen. Here's this guy that's 6'5", 6'6", 240. He's got, the kind of athleticism that you rarely see in someone that size, and an enormous arm, and had a big upside, but was somewhat perceived to be inaccurate coming out of college. And I would say the biggest thing for me with the Buffalo Bills is the quantum leap that he's taken from one year to the next. And Brian Daboll is, I think, a guy who's going to be, unfortunately, I don't think you guys are going to be able to keep him for too long, because I think he's going to be a head coach somewhere. He's a guy that I think really has maximized, and his growth in the system has been exponential over the last year, and he looks as if that guy has to take charge of the team, whether he likes it or not, or if he feels like he's the leader of the team. That guy has to be the guy, and I think the team has to believe that at the end of the game. And we saw it the other night with Russell Wilson, where they were getting mauled for 3 quarters, and they get that big stop on 4th down, and suddenly Russell Wilson has the ball in his hands, 95 yards, a little over a minute left, 2 4th down conversions. That's the kind of thing you're starting to see from Josh Allen. But I'm going to go back to, I think, the roots of what makes a really good football team. And I think it starts with your husband. And I think it starts with you. And I think it starts with the general manager, Brandon Beane. And I think Sean McDermott is a guy that, I followed as a defense coordinator, and his time with Jim Johnson in Philadelphia. And some guys have it. It's hard to put your finger on what it is, but I call it the saran wrap factor when they get in front of that room, in front of men from all parts of the country, all different backgrounds, and you speak to them. You either grab them or you don't, and they see right through you immediately if they don't feel like you have that. And Sean McDermott has it, and I think the days in the future is bright for the Buffalo Bills, and it starts with Josh Allen.
Howie, when we went out to visit Josh during his draft year, Coach Brandon Beane, Daboll, my husband and I, we all flew out to meet with Josh, and you're right. He had the most upside. So the strong arm, the physicality that you can't teach into the future, but the upside, and one of the things that we really thought about was the unknown of the upside, but we really had a lot of faith, like you said, in Coach, in the team, in Brian Daboll, to be able to develop him. And I think that's all part of what you're seeing come to life now in year 3, is all of us kind of really wrapping around him. And Josh has been a big part of that. He's been very proactive in his learning and his progression as a quarterback himself, connecting with his receivers off season, getting more help from Jordan Palmer. But I think it's just that we have been able to surround him as well with some really good staff and leadership that has helped his development.
Yeah, I think so, and I think it's the most, given all the things we have in terms of scouting. There's no stone unturned. You you've spoken to his high school coach, his peewee coach. You've spoken to his neighbor. You've spoken to everyone you could possibly speak to. But at the end of the day, it becomes kind of a gut feeling that you have about that person, and particularly at the quarterback position, because I think it's the most difficult position in Pop Warner, middle school, high school, college, and pro football to forecast. And many people get it wrong. And do you have the makeup? I mean, Buffalo is a tough town. It's a town that prides itself on being a tough town, and the history there. When you're playing quarterback there, you're chasing ghosts, and it's like a lot of great organizations that have had great quarterbacks, and Jim Kelly is staring down the gun barrel of your career, and everything you do is being compared to Jim, and Bulls, and it was a magic time in Buffalo, and I think you guys are close, and New England certainly has been taking everybody's lunch money for a long time, and I think Brandon Beane has made it a point of emphasis to say it's time. We're not packing two sets of lunch money anymore because we know you're going to take our lunch money. We're looking to take your lunch money, and that hopefully, if you're a Buffalo Bills fan, will happen as a byproduct of all the moves that you've talked about and the decisions you make at quarterback.
Well, Howie, you already brought up Jim Kelly, so I've got to transition into your playing days with the Raiders and your playing days really in Buffalo in Rich Stadium, because there's a game that stands out to a lot of Bills fans as a game that the Bills put the hurt on the Raiders. It was 1990.
58 to 3, Maddy?
Yes, the 51-3 game at Rich Stadium, the 1990 AFC Championship game where the Bills took down the Raiders by a huge score, put a lot of points on the scoreboard. I guess, what do you remember maybe about that game, or just playing against those 90s Buffalo Bills that were just tough to beat, had a great offense, had a lot of weapons like this current Bills team, but also had a really stingy and strong defense that was hard to go up against?
Yeah, defensively, Bruce Smith, who's, if not one, number 2 or 3, when you're talking about all-time defensive ends, Bruce had physical gifts that very few people have, and I have a great deal of admiration for Bruce. Bruce is through our subsequent meetings and conversations we've had at the Hall of Fame, and particularly at the Nitschke luncheon, and getting to know him, and seeing him as a leader within that room, which is a pretty good room, really, in my mind, kind of solidified what I believed was the case before I really spent a lot of time with Bruce and Bennett and the whole group. They really had a great defense, and I think the offense was interesting because two offenses that I think were a glimpse at the future were the early 1980s, way before you were born, Maddy. The early 1980s San Diego Chargers with Dan Fouts and Kellen Winslow and Joyner, and they were 3-4 wide receivers spread. It was kind of an AFL kind of play, and then what the Bills kind of morphed into, and nobody else was doing it. And Cincinnati was doing a little bit of the kind of line no huddle, and with lots of pre-snap jargon from Boomer Esiason, but the kind of muddle huddle that they were doing in Buffalo presented a unique problem, and the field was an issue, and the weather's always an issue at that time of the year. I think that game was somewhere in the 22 below zero.
Yeah, it was a cold game for sure.
Yeah, and as a West Coast team, you can stand outside the locker room, and as guys walk out of the locker room, you can kind of point to, he's going to play, he's not going to play, he's going to play, he's going to play. Because for some of those guys who've never even seen snow, let alone 22 below zero, it's a shock. And having grown up in Boston, it wasn't a shock for me. But the week prior to that, I believe, was that the week before? I'm not sure if that was the year that it was the Bo Jackson injury, but I played that game.
I think it was the year that you had the Bo Jackson injury.
Yeah, Bo Jackson injured his hip the week before, it was the week before, and I shattered my right hand, and ended up, doing what a lot of people did at that time, shooting it up and re-injuring it and shattering it a little bit more, and ended up going right from Buffalo on the entire flight with my hand in the air, trying to kill the pain and of both a loss of that magnitude and going right into surgery the next day. But Buffalo was so many Hall of Famers on that team, so many great players, so many characters. It was Jim Kelly is, a dear friend who I have a great deal of admiration for, and not only as a football player, but the way he's handled his life post football and in battling what he's had to battle, and Bruce, as I mentioned. So I have a lot of respect for that Buffalo Bills team, and certainly not I just kind of wiped that from my mind, Maddy, until you brought it up.
Sorry, I had to bring it up. The Bills fans on this podcast who listen to it, they'll enjoy those comments.
Yeah.
Well, you have been with the Raiders your whole career, correct?
Yeah, I've been with the Raiders for 13 years and Fox for 27.
Right. So,
So it's been 40 years with two teams.
Yeah. Well, the Raiders, because that's unusual these days to have a player that continues their whole career with one team. Was that by design? You only want to play for the Raiders, or just the opportunity? Thankfully nobody wanted to trade you. So was that just kind of you want to stick with one team, one family?
Well, there's two parts to that answer. One is I couldn't imagine playing for anyone else. I was drafted out of Villanova. Really no one expected me to be drafted in the second round. It was a shock to me. It was a shock to my wife, Diane, who was then my girlfriend at Villanova, and she was a classics major. I wasn't. It's amazing that we even met, given that, my kind of major was library science, which is now a kind of a dying major. But get drafted in the second round, took a look at where Oakland was on the map. I think we took one plane ride at Villanova. I thoroughly enjoyed my 4 years there. It was, the best of times. I met my wife there, which is, thank God for that. And signed a contract for 38, 48, 58, 68, 78, and 88. That's 1,000. And my check, get ready for this because my two sons laugh quite a bit about this. My check after taxes was $1,007.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And, we go to the Super Bowl and I'm making $170,000 and I'm on top of the world. I've got a used Coupe de Ville. Life is good. I couldn't imagine playing for another team. It's one of those organizations you walk into the building and you try to kind of have an understanding of what greatness is. And you really don't have to look far to see what it is, because right from Al Davis to Ron Wolf to, Art Shell, Gene Upshaw, Jim Otto, Ted Hendricks, Cliff Branch, the names go on and on and on. So much of the history of the NFL was, in many ways written through those matchups with Pittsburgh and Oakland and those teams and John Madden. So I really was, I think I was fortunate to go to the Oakland Raiders, and I think their patience and Al Davis's vision of what I could be. Now, the follow-up to that is a number of teams tried to trade for me. And Al was, as a matter of fact, I was rumored to be involved in a 3-team trade when John Elway came out and refused to play for the Colts. And I was going to go to Chicago as part of the trade. And when Al kind of found out that was the kind of the part of the deal that to make the deal happen, and John Elway would go to the Raiders. Now, I'd have traded myself for John Elway. I mean, if I were Gene, but Al refused to trade me. And, once you're part of that organization, much like, the Buffalo Bills, could you picture Jim Kelly in another uniform? Yeah. Could you picture, although Bruce Smith did play in another uniform, I don't think of Bruce Smith as a Washington, Washington football team member. I think of Bruce Smith as a Buffalo Bill, and that's who Bruce Smith is, and that's who Jim Kelly is. And I'm a Raider. I'm a Raider for life.
You collect all of these honors and all of these accolades in your 13-year career with the Raiders, being a Super Bowl champ, making it to 8 Pro Bowls, being a 3-time first-team All-Pro, being the NFL Defensive Player of the Year in '85, then being inducted into Hall of Fame in 2000, and you take it into your Fox career in 1994 when Fox NFL really got started, being a studio analyst. I mean, if you could go back to 1994, what was that setup like, being one of the first to be in studio with that group of people, some of the guys who you still currently work with?
Well, I've been with Terry for 27 years, and some of those years are dog years. I mean, I should get credit for 7 years. It's the most unlikely marriage you could possibly have. I mean, we couldn't be any more different. He's from Louisiana. I'm from Boston. I grew up Catholic. He grew up Baptist. He's been married 3-4 times. I've been married once for 40 years. We're just different, and he's like the brother that I never wanted. And for whatever reason, from day one, that chemistry really worked. And it's kind of like a football team. You really, you can't. It's so difficult. And the general manager have the responsibility of who do you bring in? How many knuckleheads are you willing to have in the locker room? Can we manage it? What impact will it have on the quarterback? What impact will it have on the chemistry of our football team? Is our leadership good enough to handle this guy? And we caught lightning in a bottle, and you mentioned Fox Sports starting out. It was Fox Sport at that time, and
Wow.
It was literally a blank page. And no player had ever gone from playing to right into the studio at that time. And, to be honest, I didn't know what I was doing. I came in for an audition, and, I thought you had to be Bob Costas, and I had all these, copious notes, and I had spoken to everyone in the league, the commissioner, and, it was kind of a mock kind of week that they were kind of in the season, and it gave you the matchups and et cetera. And David Hill, who was kind of the architect and the visionary of creating Fox Sports, which had a totally different feel to it, right down to, could you imagine watching a game now without the box in the corner of the screen that gives you the score and the down in the distance? Prior to
No.
Fox, and I remember other networks said, I will be dead before we do that at our network. And it's just crazy to imagine a game now without that. But David
Wow.
Hill's vision of Fox Sports was be yourself, be conversational. I think the thing about this medium is you can't hide from who you are. If you're trying to be somebody else, if you're trying to be, slick or cool or whatever, people see right through it. And I think they also get a feel for, and I don't know about you, but when I watch TV and I see a show with multiple people on it and I feel like it's uncomfortable or there's tension, I change the channel. I have enough tension in my life that I want to watch a TV show with tension. We've been so fortunate that, first it was James Brown, now it's Kurt Menefee and Jimmy Johnson, Terry Bradshaw, and Michael Strahan. We couldn't have kind of computer generated a better guy to fit into our show. Everyone on that set, there's a lot of Super Bowls, there's a lot of Pro Bowls, everyone's in the Hall of Fame. There's a lot of reasons for each person on that set to feel pretty good about themselves. But I can tell you honestly, it's a very selfless group. Nobody, and this is the key, and I think it's a problem in television. I'm not going to lift myself up at your expense on live television. We can disagree, but we're going to disagree respectfully. And I also, through my personal interaction with you, have an understanding of who you are, where the line is for you, what's kind of out of bounds, what you can't say. I understand what Terry likes or doesn't like. And I understand even through his speech patterns, when is a right time to kind of interrupt him when he's doing a farm animal analogy to football. Like, I had this goat, and I'm like, what? So for whatever reason, it worked. And 27 years later, we've been number one for 27 years. And, my kids, when I started out there, were 9, 6, 5. And my kids were running around that set, and 2 of them ended up playing in the NFL and were first-round draft picks. And Chris won 2 Super Bowls, and Kyle went to multiple Pro Bowls. And but their success, in many ways, is part of the Fox family success, because Terry, Jimmy, all the people on the set kind of feel like they're nephews. So there's such a strong bond in that group. And I laugh from 5 a.m. till 5:30 at night when I leave, and that day on Sunday. And we could not see each other for 3-4 months, and that chemistry is there right away.
That is great to hear. I think we have that chemistry, Maddy,
yeah,
right?
We can leave each other for 5 months and pick up where we left off.
even though there's a slight age difference, but we're still good. You talk about your kids. I have a daughter, my oldest daughter. She's 26 years old. She plays professional tennis on the women's tour, and I know how incredibly hard it is to be an athlete. You have 2 kids that have followed your footsteps in football. So just kind of share with us kind of some of the learnings that you've had from, were you one of those fathers that was, a teacher because you played the game, or were you much more the kind of standoffish parent when it came to their football?
Well, first, we didn't push football. And, if you saw Chris or you saw Kyle when they were younger, I mean, Chris was kind of a nerdy little kid who was goofy and, always smart as a whip and, inquisitive and, always wanting to learn. And, I thought, and I was actually quite happy with this. I thought, this kid's going to be an architect or, whatever he turns out to be. His mom, so, who knows? Maybe he's a Supreme Court justice. That's kind of topical news. But one day came to us and said, I want to play football. And I never really thought about it. And I never talked about it, never pushed it, because I would have been perfectly happy if none of my kids played football. And I'm not sure why that is. I mean, maybe I've been behind the curtain, and I'd had so many surgeries and, the injuries, and, you kind of see the other side of it. Although the Villanova experience was great, and we never played on television. We bussed to games. We stayed 3 to a room at George Washington Motor Lodges. It was a really unique experience. But pro football is a business, and it's what have you done for me lately? And don't really care if you're injured. If you can't get it done, move on and go to somebody else. So when he said that, I remember, and you have those conversations that I'm sure you have, laying in bed at night with the lights out. It's you turn to your wife. I turn to my wife Diane, and I say, Chris wants to play football. And I remember she said, oh, don't worry about it. He'll get his nose bloodied and he'll come home and he won't want to play. Boy, were we wrong. And Kyle was truly a man-child. He was one of those kids who was the sweetest kid you could ever imagine, and then turned out to be one of the most, at times he could get pushed into a corner, and he had too bad of a temper, and that kind of played out with the Bears periodically in a what you'd call a altercations at practice. So getting a governor on that was a challenge, but the thing I wanted to do and I thought was important to do, because I told you it's so important. I coached them all in Little League for 8 years. I coached them all in high school for 8 years, but I coached them in high school with football during the week. So it was a little bit of both. I was an active participant, and Fox was kind enough, and I said to them, look, this is important to me, and I have to do this. If this doesn't work, let me know. And they were extremely supportive of, and they were always supportive of, us being involved with our sons' sports careers, and coached them for 8 weeks during the week. And then on Friday night or Saturday, whenever the game was played, I would be somewhere in the corner of the end zone by myself. I was a nervous dad, always have been. And I tell people, you've had success in sports, and I tell people the feeling that you have watching your kids play in college or in the NFL isn't any different than the feeling you have when they're on the mound in Little League baseball. It's the same thing. The only thing is it's playing out on national TV. It's the same thing. But it's been an incredible ride with both of them, both being drafted in the first round, and the magical kind of, I don't want to downplay the New England Super Bowl, which was great. But when you go to New England, there's, it's not for everyone. And it's a very selfless kind of system where week to week you could be doing, one thing one week and one thing another week. And maybe this week the role that you're playing is not beneficial or your style of play. And I thought enjoyed the experience of playing under Bill Belichick. He enjoyed the experience of playing with Tom Brady and a number of players in New England. But the win in Philadelphia, and part of that is because it's a city that has been starved for a Super Bowl champion and never really got across the finish line. They got there with Ron Jaworski, and I think it was 1980, right before I got to the Raiders. And the Raiders were the first wild card team to win the Super Bowl under Tom Flores. And I think that Philadelphia experience, and the parade and the speeches, and all three of the boys. Howie works for the Raiders indirectly and was in the scouting department for 4 or 5 years, and then moved over to all things involved with the stadium, which is just amazing. I've driven by it and I go, oh my gosh. I mean, we went from Oakland, where you're sharing a field with a baseball team. In the locker room, it's the toilets are backing up, and there's rats in the building, and it's to this state of the art. It looks like the Death Star landed in Las Vegas. It's just amazing. And I'm happy for the organization. I'm happy for all that. But Philadelphia, to me, watching the parade, driving back to the hotel, I remember the night they won the NFC Championship game, and not being able to get to our hotel and having to park our car 5 blocks from the hotel at 1 a.m. because we had been down at Chris and Meg, our son and daughter-in-law's place, and walking through what the only way I could describe it would be The Purge. And Maddy, you probably have watched The Purge. Kim, you probably haven't watched
I know what The Purge is.
But it was like walking through The Purge. And thankfully, I had kind of a get out of jail free card because Chris was part of the Eagles NFC Championship team. But that moment at the end of the game, my grandson runs up to our set, which is down by the corner of the end zone, and it's facing the stands, and he comes up on my lap, and we're on TV. I'm looking at the monitor out in front of our set, and there's also a set on the field where the presentation of the NFC trophy is being made to the Philadelphia Eagles, and Terry, Uncle Terry, is interviewing Chris on the field, and I'm sitting there with Waylon on my lap, and Terry has a dog mask on. It's just like it was a surreal moment, and I can tell you, having won a Super Bowl and covered 10 Super Bowls with the with Fox, and all the things that personally I've been fortunate enough to be able to accomplish. The things that your children do are far eclipse that, and in terms of personal meaning to me, I'm so proud of them. And Chris has built like 60 wells in East Africa, and he's trying to save the world. And Kyle, does a lot of things for underprivileged kids in inner cities, and Chris is reading programs in 3 different states. And Howie, in his own way, not being an NFL player, is one of those people that likes to, around holidays, buy a bunch of food and drive around to homeless shelters and feed people. And I've always kind of felt like, and my wife Diana have always felt like, that is the most important part of your life, and it says a lot about who you are. And I think it's good for the soul. I'm one of those people that watches A Wonderful Life every year around December 23rd and get re-inspired. And I recommend another one for you, Maddy, Family Man.
Okay.
Yep.
Another good movie that'll just make you kind of walk away and go, you know what? There's a lot to be appreciative for, a lot to be thankful for.
I know that there's been several times where I've had people ask me why we invest in sports, or why we've put a lot of kind of our achievements in sports, whether it's been in hockey or in football. And I tell people all the time, like, you just don't understand. It's not just the game itself and the entertainment part, but what it does for all the intangibles that it does for an athlete. Like, my daughter has been able to experience so many things and learn so many skills as an athlete and being part of tennis that I don't know if she would have gotten anywhere else. And then just seeing it, especially here in Buffalo, what the sport means to our community and how it just brings a team together, our community, our fans together. So I tell people all the time, like, it's worth investing in. You get so much more out of it than just the game.
Well, you guys have invested in a lot of, you guys are owners of about 8 different franchises, right?
It seems like that. Yes, some days it does definitely seem like that.
I'm going to ask you a question. Are you going to get a new stadium there?
We are working on it. As you know, with the Raiders, it's taken them a long time to get that. So I know it's not a short process, but continually working our way through that. COVID kind of put a little bit of a slowdown in that talks, but certainly we're working behind the scenes in that. So we were just at the Raiders.
And I think that community, that fan base, that community really deserves a new stadium. And it's one of those deals where you could do a kind of retractable roof, and you could either emphasize the cold or make it warm for another event. There's so many things that you can do. I mean, with the Raiders Stadium, I know they have that same kind of field that Arizona has, where they press a button, the entire field rolls out of the stadium.
Yeah.
So, the hardest ticket to get in Las Vegas is what, Maddy?
I don't know. What is it?
Ready for
I
this?
haven't been to Vegas before.
The National Rodeo Finals.
I did not know that.
Yes. It's taking place and the reason why I got a lot of cowboy friends, and having a home in Montana, and one of the things I always talk about is how difficult it is to get that, and the seating capacity in the building that they've held it. And I see that, and they're going to have the Pro Bowl there, and they'll have the draft there, and hopefully a Super Bowl soon. And I think if you're looking at, let's say you're from Buffalo, and the Buffalo Bills are playing the Las Vegas Raiders, is that a trip you're not going to want to make in November or December?
So true. That is so true.
Oh gosh.
Well, Howie, how did you went from player to analyst? And then where did acting come from? So you've been in several movies. I see you on TV all the time in different commercials. Was that, a Terry Bradshaw thing? I know he's done a lot of movies as well. You said your library science was your major. So where did this acting ability come from?
But communications was my major, but Sister Mary Margaret Cribben who kind of reminded me of my grandmother when I needed to get my GPA up, was taking library science
Okay.
with her. 1, 2, and 3 was always a good thing. You know, it was just kind of happenstance. My agent called me about, got a call about a movie called Broken Arrow, and John Travolta was starring in it, and John Woo, a famous director named John Woo, was directing it. And it was depicted to me as a 2-week deal. I'd go out there for 2 weeks, and we had 3 sons at that point. And I get out there, I get on the set, and, you know, it's a John Travolta film. And, you know, at that time, it's a $65-70 million film. And, you know, translating to today's dollars, that's probably 150, close to $200 million film. So it's a big film. It had that feel. No expense was cut there, and had fun. You know, it was just one of those kind of campy, fun movies. And every week, John Woo would come into my trailer and say, "We make you bigger, John Wayne." And I kept calling home to Diane and the 3 kids, who have now set up a ramp at the pool, and they're running their bikes into the pool, and she wants me to do something about it. At some point, your kids realize after a certain period of time that, you know, when you're on speakerphone threatening them from, you know, wherever we were shooting, in the middle of dead center in the middle of Montana or northern Arizona at Lake Powell, you can't get home at least for a day or 2, so they're not real scared. That was a fun film. I ended up staying there for 2-3 months, and loved every minute of it. And then did a film with I did a film called what was the name of the film with? It was an Elvis thing with.
You did Firestone, 3,000 Miles to Graceland.
Yeah, 3,000 Miles to Graceland was after Firestorm. Firestorm was a deal that was a preemption deal. So Disney had come to me because I did Broken Arrow with Fox. They had preemption rights on any offer that I got. So Disney came to me with a post-apocalyptic film that was, you know, $40 million film, and Fox preempted me off of that to shoot Firestorm, which was a $16 million film without a finished script and without a director at the time. And wow. I had to do it. Not only did I have to do it, but I had to do it all season. So I would fly to Vancouver every Sunday night from our show, you know, go through customs, sprint to the hotel, get up at 5:30 in the morning, drive to the set up by Whistler. It was out in the middle of nowhere, and shoot all week, and then fly back late Friday night for our Saturday morning production meeting. And that went on for 3 months. And that really was kind of a point where my wife and I sat down and said, "Why are you doing this?" Because I'm away for 3 months, and I'm missing all those moments that, you know, you don't want to miss. And my wife, who's given up a law career to raise the 3 boys, she practiced law out in LA, went to USC Law School while I was playing out there, and practiced in LA for 5-6 years. And that's a great sacrifice. And, you know, the older I get, the more I appreciate and think how selfless that was. And we just made the decision. It's like, do we need the money? No. Is it ego? I don't think it was ego. I think it was just a fun thing to do. But in many ways, I kind of felt like, as a family man, it was a selfish thing to do. It was, you know, I had spent those 13 years playing football. And when I tell you I was committed 24/7, and she was there for all the surgeries and all the rehabs and, you know, all the sacrifice, and me bringing a projector home in the early part of my career on a reel-to-reel and putting a sheet up on the wall in the bedroom, watching film. And she went through all that. And after the 13 years, I think the perspective probably was more of, okay, we did that. We all, you know, places for that. It's time to kind of be back in the family and part of the family unit on a regular basis. And I'm glad I did. I ended up making another film, 3,000 Miles to Graceland, with Kevin Costner and Kurt Russell. And, I value those experiences, but it was more of a cameo, and had fun doing it. The commercials, just got fortunate, did a series of commercials with Terry Hatcher, and I think we did 140 or 50 commercials for Radio Shack. And so many people thought Terry Hatcher was my wife. I would literally be holding my wife's hand at a football game, and someone would walk up to me and say, "Boy, I love those commercials you do with your wife." I'm looking over at my wife and I'm saying, "This is my wife." My kids wanted to print up shirts that Terry Hatcher is not my mom.
Well, one of my favorite things
and
that
then
you've
Chevy for a lot of years. One of the favorite things, what, I'm sorry?
No, I said one of the my favorite things that you've done, though, is Football for Dummies, because I have that on my phone downloaded, and because it brings people into the game, and especially if you're new to football, or even me who knows the generalities, but I want to dig a little bit deeper. I think it's just bringing football to the masses. That's one of my favorite things that you've done, and the little Howie looking referee instructions on the signals on the.
I've read a lot of that book.
It's been very informational, and I don't know how you got into writing that book, but thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they asked me to do it some years ago, and we literally just updated it, I think, last year, because you needed a fresher perspective in terms of, the game is quite a bit. I think our league at some point over the last 5, 6, 7 years has, we were jamming a square peg in a round hole for a number of years, trying to find Jim Kelly, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. And right now in Pop Warner Middle School and high school and in college, quarterbacks are playing out of the gun, out of spread formation. It's a lot of read options. It's abbreviated reads in the secondary. It's quarterbacks who can beat you both with their arm and their legs. And I think the league has kind of accepted that. And I think we challenge defenses more now, and it's interesting because defenses are usually ahead of offenses in the early part of the season. That hasn't been the case this year, and I think part of that is off-season conditioning. Football's a lot like boxing. You can't fight without fighting, and you can't prepare for football without playing football. And because of COVID and the lack of OTAs and mini camps and all of that, I think defensive players, in terms of the pace of the game, were a little bit behind. And I think offensively, we're challenging defenses more vertically and horizontally than we ever have before. Smoke screens, jet sweeps, smoke screen meaning a quick throw out to a wide receiver where the other wide receiver has one block, and if he makes that block and one guy misses out there in space, with a dynamic player like an Odell Beckham Jr. or like your guy in Buffalo, that could be a home run or at least a one-on-one matchup with a safety. So the entire team has to run out to the sideline all the time, and that includes your 290, 300-pound defensive linemen and 240, 50-pound linebackers. And I think that shows up in the fourth quarter, both in run defense and pass defense, without boring you with too much football.
Oh no, you can never bore us with football.
Howie, from football for dummies to the acting career, to watching your kids play in the NFL, winning Super Bowls, to you being in the NFL and working for Fox Sports, being a studio analyst for Fox Sports and Fox NFL Sunday. I mean,
I'm just tired listening to you.
It's crazy. You've done so much, but it's been so awesome to sit here and get to listen to, how you've navigated through that life and had an awesome life with your wife and your kids and spending time with all of them, making time for all of them during a very busy career in football. But we appreciate the time. It was awesome to get to talk to you, and we're excited for our listeners to hear what you had to say.
I'm glad we finally got this scheduled. I think you and Terry are doing a great job up there. And I think, just like with any company, I think it starts at the top. I think the people at the top set the tone for the entire organization. And I think if players believe that the organization is run the way your organization is run, you have an opportunity to be successful both individually and collectively. And hats off to you.
Well,
and give your husband my best.
I will, but we are having the time of our lives doing it. So we know how blessed we are and appreciate it, and appreciate so much talking to you. It is
like
so much fun.
Pinch yourself. It's like, how could I possibly get paid to do this?
Well, I actually don't get paid, but yes, definitely enjoying it so much, and it's so much fun, and I love doing it, and I love getting to meet people, and it's just very blessed to be in the sports and being in football. As much as football has meant to you, I'm feeling the same way.
Definitely.
So,
thank you so much,
Thanks, Howie.
Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
The New York Lottery is giving away $50 worth of the new limited edition New York Series scratch-off tickets with a chance to win up to $1 million to one of our lucky listeners each week. Visit buffalobills.com/New York Lottery or click on the link in the podcast description to enter now. Kim, something pretty exciting happened this past week. It was the merge between the Buffalo Bills and Bills Mafia to create some awesome merch, and I'm sure some other things on the horizon. I want to ask you what went into collaborating with the name Bills Mafia and co-founder Del Reed. There was a clip that the Buffalo Bills released, and Del said that, Mafia means family. Bills Mafia is all about family. It's about investing in each other and supporting the team. He said the Buffalo Bills are the extra family member in every household for Buffalo Bills fans, and that's something that really stuck with me. Watching that 30-second clip, I'm sure more of that video is going to be released. So just what went behind that, merging with a name like Bills Mafia, merging with the people behind Bills Mafia, collaborating is something that I'm pumped about. I've seen the clothing. I'm sure we'll do a lot more than just clothing. But yeah, explain what went behind that and, why now?
Well, when I talked to Del, he said it was like losing one of his children, the Bills Mafia. And I understand what he felt like, but it's not about him losing a child. It's about him gaining a much bigger family across the whole world. And I think that's what really kind of led into the conversations. What I love about Bills Mafia is that it is authentic, right? I mean, it started with Del, it started with our community, the grassroots, very real. And even though it's a phrase that we've been using over the last several years, it's more than just the words, right? It's the family aspect of it, and it's what the feeling happens with family. And so this has been, obviously this isn't something that the Del was easily, wanting to let go of. There were many conversations over the course of the last few years to get to where this point was, and to make him feel comfortable that we want to be a partner with him, and that we want to take that Bills Mafia and make it, and like I said, bring more people into our family. And I think that's where we really connected and said, okay, that's what it's for. As you know, we talk about this year, Bills Together, One Family, and certainly we just felt like this was just a great time to kind of be able to, bring that brand to a bigger audience and more awareness of the kind of team we want to be, the kind of community that we want to be. So very, very thankful to Del for all his cooperation and working with us as a partner, and excited to see all, whether it's merchandise, whether it's our content, whether it's just kind of, the shout outs that a lot of our players do. Happy to have so many more people in that family.
Yeah, and I think the really cool thing is how this started, and how you pointed out it was really grassroots, and how the Bills went to Del with this idea to do the collaboration and to do the merge, and knowing that you guys respect Del Reed and respect the founders of Bills Mafia, and went to them with this, and like you said, had multiple conversations in order to partner with the Buffalo Bills and Bills Mafia. I think it speaks to how much respect you and the Bills have for this fan base and what they've done for the Buffalo Bills.
Yes, and I would also, bring up the whole process. Like there were other people part of the process. So obviously the league is a big part of it.
Right.
And one of the things I think some people forget is that, the Buffalo Bills and the logo and the NFL, like those are all trademarked. So Dell wasn't able to kind of really put the two together yet. Maybe, obviously by the actions and just community and the fandom, he could, but being able to do that. So there were some legal things that we had to connect with, and that allowed Dell to even expand bigger than what his current fans were. And that's why we did the partnership, because we were able to bring something which is our logo, our mark, the NFL shield, to the Bills Mafia, and I think that's why that partnership worked. But some people just don't know that there's often like other things in play.
There's hoops to jump through. You've got to do a bunch of things when you're binding it to an NFL name.
Yes, and that's really why we wanted to partner with Dell, because that's the way we felt we could bring it to a bigger mass, a bigger fan, and make sure that the Bills Mafia and the Buffalo Bills were forever connected together. Like I said, a lot of people did a lot of work to get to that point, but happy we're there now. So I think you're going to start seeing some real cool merch and a lot of people out there just kind of waving the Bills Mafia flag even higher.
Yeah, I've seen a couple pictures, some snapshots of some of the merch, and man, does it look cool. I'm excited for our fans to get their hands on it. I'm really pumped to see what this partnership brings about. I mean, we are further connecting with the community, further connecting with our Bills Mafia fan base. I feel like in a year where we are so apart in so many ways and we still don't have fans in the stands, I feel like we've been able to come together in a lot of different ways than we haven't been able to in years past.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. More than ever, like you said, during this time, family, that's what we're about, and that's what we need each other. And this is just another step in making sure that we are saying to our fans and to new fans coming in, like, be a part of the Bills Mafia.
I like it. Let's make it global. Let's make
right.
it worldwide. All right, Kim, that's going to wrap it up for this week's podcast episode. We've got the Jets coming up here in Week 7, an away game, a division game, an important game. So a short week for the team to prep and get ready, a short week for us to get everything that we need to get done.
This season is flying by. It really is. I can't believe we're already here. This is flying by, and like I said, just kind of need to regroup and, like I said, as they talk about turning the page and getting ready for Sunday.
So true. All right, Bills Podcast brought to you by New York Lottery. Kim, thanks for the time. Thanks to our listeners. We appreciate you tuning in to all these episodes. We've got another great guest coming up next week, so make sure you stay tuned.